Hello, everyone. Thank you for connecting to this webinar. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are about to embark upon a different journey relating to digital transformation. So I would like to welcome you to episode 1 of the Digital Transformation for Cities and Communities, of which the first session, episode 1, is dedicated to digital twin in cities. Before proceeding with the session, I would like to briefly take you through today's agenda. We will kickstart today's agenda with opening remarks from the 3 international standards developing organizations, ISO, ITU, IEC. This will be followed by keynote speeches from the Fireware Foundation and from the National Digital Twin Program in the UK. Following this, we will move on to session 1, which is on Can Digital Twins Change Our Cities, followed by a brief discussion. Following this, we will wrap up the webinar with concluding remarks from the ITU. So I see that we have quite a few people already connected, and we hope that you will actively engage in the discussion with us and contribute to the global dialogue on this topic. So without further ado, I would like to commence with the first session, the opening remarks, for which I would like to hand the floor over to Mr. Sergio Mujica, who is the Secretary General of ISO. So over to you, sir.
Very well, thank you very much. And in particular to the ITU for organizing this series of seminars on digital transformation for cities and communities. And it is a great pleasure to have the opportunity to co-organize this very first episode together with our colleagues and friends of the ITU, IEC, and ISO, of course. Just a little bit of context. We all know that by the year 2050, 70% of the world population, and I am talking about 6.7 billion people, will live in cities. That means that whatever we do will have a big impact. And of course, we that are working on this domain have a great responsibility in our hands. And that is also why this topic has been identified as one of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, SDG 11, because what we want to achieve here is cities that are inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. ISO, IEC, and ITU have a long-standing cooperation in this area. We are different organizations, of course, and we all create international standards, but we know that if we combine our talents, we will be more effective. This is not about our 3 organizations or many others that work in this area. This is about the final outcome that will affect, as I said before, 70% of the world population. We started off several years ago with some global congresses organized first by the IEC in Singapore, then we followed at ISO with a global congress in Barcelona, and finally the ITU in Santa Fe, Argentina. With those global congresses, we had the opportunity to exchange ideas, to share information, but we wanted to go beyond. Because one thing is coordinating our efforts, and a different thing is actually doing things together. And that's why we launched a task force, a joint task force in the year 2020. This is also why we have aligned the 3 organizations to celebrate together the World Standards Day with the big topic of standard for SDGs, including, of course, smart cities. So that's the general context. And now about the session for today, which is about digital twins in cities. First of all, I think it's very important to highlight that this is a big, huge market, which is growing by 38% annually. And the reason for that is that with the new transformative digital technologies, digital twins are really changing most of the society sectors, including, of course, cities. As you all know, a digital twin is an exact replica of a physical entity, process, or service. And the power of this is that we can better understand the past, we can monitor the present in real time, and we also can predict and prevent some possible scenarios in the future. And this is especially relevant for cities because, as we know, cities are very complex ecosystems. So with this digital twin, we can enhance our predictability, also the planning and the management for the cities. And it's also very important to highlight that with this, we can explore what if scenarios, so we can make, of course, better decisions. In this context, we also know that international standards have a very big role to play, starting with, of course, how do we define a common understanding of digital twins, but also how do we create the technical specifications for this system to be able to connect to each other. So interoperability and interconnectivity are very important concepts here. And finally, how do we, working together, identify and share best practice? So thanks again. Thank you very much for joining this very first episode of this series of webinar on digital transformation for cities. And I wish you a very fruitful and productive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mojica, for those remarks and for joining us today. So we will now move on to the next opening remarks, which will be delivered by Dr. Chesab Lee, who's the esteemed director of the Telecommunication Standardization Bureau at the ITU. So over to you, Dr. Lee.
Thank you very much. A very good day to you, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar today, which is the first episode of a series of webinars on digital transformation for cities and communities, collaborating with IEC and ISO. Mr. Mojica, Secretary General of ISO, already explained how those three international organizations working on these subject areas. I'm very delighted with this very nice briefing to you. Three organizations is working together. So for many years, ITU has played a significant role in supporting the development of smart, sustainable cities and coordinating the deployment of ICTs and digital technologies. Digital twin is the latest technology movement, reshaping the design and the planning process of smart cities and communities. With its exceptional capability to monitor physical assets and simulate outcomes, many cities are looking to adopt digital twins to improve resiliency and sustainability. This is especially important if cities want to get back on track and make steady progress in achieving the United Nations 2030 Agenda and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, in addition to the ITU, the Connect to 2030 Agenda and its targets for digital transformation. As Mr. Mojica already highlighted, international standards and the guidelines will be vital to support the adoption of digital twin in cities. They contain technical and policy recommendations that cities can use to ensure that the interoperability requirements of IoT systems and other performance expectations are met. But we also know that digital twin is still an emerging area for research and standardization. In case of ITU, ITUT Study Group 20 on Internet of Things and Smart Cities and Communities has already taken the initiative to develop new standards to define digital twin systems interoperability and capability framework in smart cities and communities. The Smart City and Digital Technology standards developed by ITUT Study Group 20 have already contributed to helping cities coordinate and evaluate their smart city strategies. They ensure the success of cities' investment towards digital technologies, maximizing positive outcomes. I'm very excited that today we will learn more about digital twin technology and its application in cities. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here today and wish you all a productive and informative webinar. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Dr. Lee, for those remarks. We will now proceed to the next opening remarks from Mr. Giles Toney, who is the Deputy General Secretary of the International Electrotechnical Commission. So over to you, Mr. Toney.
So thank you very much, and hello everyone. Thanks a lot also on behalf of the IC General Secretary, Philip Metzger, who could not be with us today, for organizing this webinar. Many thanks to ITU in particular for hosting it, and of course thanks to all of you for your participation. I'm not going to repeat what my esteemed colleague have said before, but as mentioned by Sergio before, for several years already, the three international organizations, IEC, ISO, and ITU, have been collaborating in the area of smart cities. This has been, or has started with the creation of the Joint Smart Cities Task Force and the organization of several prominent events such as the World Smart City Forum. It is definitely undeniable that achieving international consensus in such a very broad field like smart cities requires combining the complementary strengths of our three organizations. And I'm very pleased today that our three organizations are really working together towards that objective. With the advent of the Internet of Things and the massive amount of data that is available today, the implementation of digital twins in many industries has grown in popularity over the last years. For instance, in the IEC, we have seen a lot of interest in the industrial automation field or for smart manufacturing application to deploy digital twins. And we expect this technology or this tool to be also deployed in many other fields or industries, and of course, including smart cities. The case for using digital twins in cities is evident, whether for enhancing urban planning, improving mobility, or optimizing energy consumptions and waste management. It goes without saying that international standards, as was noted by Sergio and Cesar before me, are needed to accelerate the deployment of digital twins in an effective, consistent, and interoperable way. By collecting huge amount of data and leveraging the power of simulations, digital twins not only support the digital transformation journey, but they also contribute to the future of standardization. At the IEC, we see a lot of potential in standards that will not be only read or interpreted by machines, but also updated directly by machines. This is the concept that we call smart standards, and on which we already work very closely with ISO. So the topic of digital twins is definitely relevant to standardization, and we very much look forward to the contribution of today's distinguished speakers. So I can only concur with what was said before me. This is going to be a very interesting webinar. Unfortunately, I cannot attend for the rest of the webinar as I have another, actually ISO, IEC, ITU meeting taking place at the same time. It is a meeting of the Standardization Program Coordination Group, gathering the three technical boards of our three organizations. And this webinar is actually a wonderful illustration of this collaboration goal. So I wish you a very successful webinar, and many thanks again for your active participation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toney, for those remarks and for joining us today. We will now move on to the keynote speeches for today's webinar, for which I would like to hand over to Mr. Nasser Al-Marzouki, who's the co-chairman of the IEC, ISO, ITU Joint Task Force on Smart Cities, and who's also the chairman of ITUT Study 20 on IoT, Smart Cities and Communities. So over to you, Mr. Al-Marzouki.
Thank you very much, Mike Lee, for for introducing me, and I'm pleased to be the moderator for this session. First, I'm also pleased to hear that the collaboration between the three SDOs, the three organizations, is growing and increasing, and I'm proud to be part as well of this, great collaboration between the three sectors as a co-chair of the joint task force between ITU, ISO, and IEC on smart cities. So, in order to begin, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nasser Al-Marzouqi. I'm the co-chairman of IEC, ISO, ITU Joint Task Force on Smart Cities, and also chairman of ITUT Study Group 20, which is the lead study group on IoT, smart cities and communities. It's my pleasure to be your moderator for this session. So to begin, I want to quickly thank you all for joining us. This is the first episode of our ITU webinar series on digital transformation and smart cities and communities. And I'm pleased to see that the first episode is being jointly organized by ITU, ISO, and IEC. So I will begin the session by introducing to you two exceptional speakers and exceptional speakers and digital twin specialists. Mr. Ulrich L., who is the CEO of Fireware Foundation, and Ms. Sarah Hayes, who is the change stream lead of the National Digital Twin Program at the Center of Digital Britain. So they will be delivering a keynote speech for us on the latest development of digital twins. If time permits, we will take also a number of questions and answers during the questions and answers sections toward the end. So without a further delay, I'd like now to call on Mr. Ulrich, who's the CEO of Fireware Foundation. Ulrich is a reputed executive in the IT sector, formerly vice president and leader of the manufacturing and industry for system integration business at OTS in Germany. So, Ulrich, you have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, Natha, thank you very much for the introduction, and a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are on the world. I see we have a lot of participants from different countries, and we heard a lot about digital twins already in the introduction. And yes, it is true, digital twins will influence our future life. Our new digital life will gravitate around digital twins and context information describing what's happening around us, when, where, and why. And a digital twin is the approach to, as shown here on the left side, to capture, and I'll use my laser pointer, to capture data describing what's happening around us, what's happening in the real world, to represent them in the digital twin, then to use functionalities like big data analytics, like artificial intelligence to process, analyze, and monitor this data, to update the data within the digital twin, and then to provide data out of the digital twin back to the real world, or even to actuate processes within the real world. So to automate processes out of the digital twin. And for example, an autonomously driving car is a car which is operated in the digital twin and really driving in the real world. But today we see that this context information and this data we are trying to capture in the digital twin, they are organized in silos. In silos because data models don't fit to each other, interfaces are not open, and very often there are also already thick walls within this different silos we see in cities, in water, in energy, and these different domains where digitization will for sure help us to further improve operations. And in cities. It is our mission at FiWare to break down these data silos and to make data available on platforms to improve the quality of life of people living in a city, and also to reduce the cost of operating a city and to make it more environmental friendly. So what is FiWare? It is a framework of open source software components. So as a FiWare ecosystem, similar as a Linux Foundation or the Wikimedia Foundation, we are managing an open source community, which is providing open source software building blocks. That's the first ingredient. And the second one is standard APIs, so standard interfaces to break down these data silos. And here NGSI became, after developing into a de facto standard, NGSI became a real formal standard, standardized by ETSI, which is one of the 3 large European standardization organizations, as the standard API for context information management in smart cities. And out of the before mentioned software building blocks, the FiWare Context Broker is the most important one. We see here on the left side a very simplified architecture of a smart city platform with a context broker in the center, southbound interfaces to get access to the data, and northbound functionalities, as I mentioned before, to process, analyze, and visualize this data. And in a more detailed way, it looks like this. Again, the context broker in the center, interfaces to get access to this data coming from cameras, from sensors deployed in an IoT network, from drones, from other IT systems, but also from social media. Very, very important data coming from Facebook, from Twitter, which are published, publicly published in these systems. And then on top, as I mentioned before, the functionalities to work with this data. Very important, the context broker, so the core software component of FiWare, which is again open source, so available for everyone for free forever, has been elected by all European member states to become a standard building block in a big program called Connecting Europe Facility, with a target to create the digital single market of the European Union. And it is now recommended by the European Commission to the member states to be used when creating digital solutions. And on the right side, we see that what I mentioned before, that NGSI has been adopted by ETSI as a formal standard for context information management in smart cities. So with this, we are answering the question how to break down these silos and how to exchange data. And this program in the center answers the question which data to be used, because it's working on common data models. Standard data models, all are published on GitHub, sorry. And initially it was started by FiWare and TM Forum, together with 10 so-called front-runner smart cities, 8 from Europe, plus La Plata from Argentina and Montevideo from Uruguay. And in the meantime, we have more than 600 data models published here on GitHub. And we have other organizations who are joining. OESC, for example, Michael will talk later. Michael is also working for OESC, and an important program in India. And I will come to that at the end of my presentation. This is a typical roadmap in a digital transformation of a city with 4 major steps. First, to break down these data silos, to decide on a common platform, on common APIs, then to go the next steps, to go for common data models. In the third step, to support innovation and to make what we call right-time open data accessible. So not only historic and static data, but close to real-time data. And finally, when a city has been successful in creating its smart city platform, then to provide this platform also to third parties within the city and to enable the data economy. So to allow companies, to allow dealers within the city to provide their data via the smart city platform, and in some cases also to monetize this data, because the data economy means also that very often data has a certain value and people are willing to pay for this data. And let me finish, given the time, let me finish with one example. For me, a very good example where all these ingredients, so open source software building blocks, standard interfaces, standard data models, and reference architectures have been used, and this is in India. When Prime Minister Modi was elected, and I saw that we have several participants here from India, when Prime Minister Modi was elected for the first time back in 2014, he started the 100 Smart Cities program, where billions of US dollar compared or transferred into Indian rupees were invested, and the big consulting companies of this world supported the cities in creating their smart city strategy, bringing first tenders to the market, guiding the implementation of first projects, also some with the approach to create digital twins. And 2 years ago, the responsible minister, and I saw that also Olaf is here, so Olaf and me met Minister Hardeep Singh Puri the first time back in 2018, and in 2019 he identified that each of the city has built its own silo, that there are only limited synergy effects between the cities, and that the wheel has been reinvented several times using public money. And this was the start of a program to come to a more efficient way, and the start of what is called the India Urban Data Exchange Program. Together with the India Institute of Science in Bangalore, we, together with some partners from our ecosystem, supported them in creating a new smart city standard architecture. We implemented this platform together. It's now deployed in the first 10 pilot cities, and in February of this year, Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, together with the minister here shown on the right side for electronics and information technology, presented this new platform, the India Urban Data Exchange Platform, as a new standard smart city platform for India. Not with the intent to bring it to the 100 smart cities which have already implemented their platforms, but for the remaining 4,200 cities in India. So it is quite a big market and a big synergy potential. And finally, in June of this year, even the Bureau of Indian Standards adopted NGSI-LD as a standard interface for smart cities in India. So also coming from a de facto standard now to a formal standard in India. Yeah, and this was a bit of the story of FiWare, the open source platform technology for our smart digital future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yurich, for your presentation and for your keynote and for the valuable information you shared with us. So now I'd like to move to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Sarah Hayes, Climate Resilience Demonstrator Project Lead of the National Digital Twin Program for the Center of Digital Built Britain. Sarah is also an economist with over 20 years of experience working across infrastructure sectors in Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean. So Sarah, you have the floor.
Thank you, Nasser. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Hayes. I work with the National Digital Twin Program in the UK, and I'm leading our Climate Resilience Demonstrator project. So I used to work in telecoms in Africa with Orange, and as a regulator in the Caribbean. So I've participated in ITU events before, so it's really great to be back, and thank you very much for the invitation to speak today. It's great to be here, and thank you everyone for listening. So I want to talk today about connected digital twins as an essential enabler of net zero in our cities. And I think when we talk about smart cities, we're really talking about smart places, not just cities. We're talking about everywhere. Regions, towns, villages, rural areas, as well as cities, are smart everywhere. For example, with connected and autonomous vehicles, we don't want to just drive them in the cities, we want to be able to drive them everywhere. So everywhere needs to be connected in the end. And when we talk about a smart city or a smart place, what we're talking about is a net zero city or a net zero place in the future. And I want to explain how I think connected digital twins can help us get to net zero. And I'm going to start with some of the background in the UK around the National Digital Twin Programme and the report Data for the Public Good, which was published by the National Infrastructure Commission, which is an advisory body to government here in the UK. It was published back in 2017. And I quite like telling this story because I used to work at the National Infrastructure Commission and I led the team that produced this report. And in the production of this report, we consulted widely with industry. So talking to people across the infrastructure sectors, across energy, water, telecoms, transport, flood defence and waste, we found that there was a recognition of the benefits of sharing data and some willingness to share data because of the benefits of sharing data across organisations and across sectors, but that it's difficult to do so. So we found that there was a need for a framework to enable the sharing of data across organisations and across sectors. So in the report, we set out a vision for a national digital twin, which isn't one great big model of everything. It's an ecosystem of connected digital twins, all about working for better outcomes from our built environment. And I think what is important to focus here actually is the title, Data for the Public Good. There is something in that title in that we see that the national digital twin should be developed for the public good. It's not just about achieving private benefits from digital twins. There are public benefits to be achieved and realized through connecting digital twins. And I think when we talk about developing standards for sharing data through an information management framework, it's a little bit like going back to sort of thinking about the evolution of GSM and how that had to be driven by political will, because in the end, it was all about creating mobile networks for us all to talk to each other, to have network effects, and very much within the programme that we see that things have to be done for the public good. So it isn't just a case of saying to the private sector, please go off and develop a nice information management framework for us so that we can all share data in the right way. It actually needs to be driven by a collaboration between industry, governments, and academia. So really working across on all parties, all interested parties here to produce an information management framework, a framework for sharing data for all. Within the National Digital Twin Programme, we use a systems thinking approach. So we think of our cities, our places as systems of systems. So looking at economic infrastructure, the relation with social infrastructure, and then the interface with the natural environment. It's all about sort of thinking about it as a system as a whole. A lot of our problems, I think, has already been explained, arise from working in silos. And what we're looking to do is to use connected digital twins, cutting across those silos to solve those problems. And as I've mentioned, we see the national digital twin. Any national digital twin can be in the UK, can be anywhere. Data doesn't stop at borders, as we know, as an ecosystem of connected digital twins. So it's all about connecting digital twins across sectors, within sectors, and across countries as well. And we see this as we see digital twins as part of the cyber physical fabric. And that really means, I guess, the connectedness of everything. So seeing digital twins alongside IoT, AI, robotics. And I think it's also important to note that this vision for infrastructure and for the future isn't a technology-focused vision, it's very much a people-focused vision. So using infrastructure and technology in the right way to enable better social, economic, and environmental outcomes in the future, and using a systems-based approach to do that. So I'd like to get back down into the nitty-gritty of what is a digital twin. I think we're going to hear some different definitions today, and hopefully we'll be able to converge around some central principles here. But generally, I like to describe it as a digital representation of something physical. And that something physical, what we're talking about, can be something in the past, in the present, or the future. So a purist might argue that a digital twin has a live connection to something in the real world right now. But I think there is something that the question in there is about using right-time data, perhaps, rather than real-time data. And we tend to think of digital twins, not just of assets, but of digital twins of assets, processes, and systems. So we have data flowing from the physical world through to the digital world. We're able to use the data in the digital twin to help us make a decision that then has impact on the physical world. And I think that's what's important about digital twins. They're not about sort of handing it all over to them to do everything for us. It's about helping us making better decisions. And you'll see there, I've just put the reference there to the Digital Twin Hub, and I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. But this particular diagram comes from the Digital Twin Toolkit, which is published on the DT Hub. And that was produced as a collaboration of different people working across different organizations. Now we see that it's really important to have a specific use case for a digital twin. So it might be tempting to say, let's develop a digital twin of a city and let's see what we can do with it. Typically, we find that it's more successful to start with a specific problem. What is the problem we're trying to solve? And then to build the digital twin around that. The future vision, I think, is all about city digital twins, place digital twins, national digital twins, regional digital twins, but that is a long-term vision. And ultimately, I can see that when we've got many connected digital twins within a city or a place, that's when we're starting to build up a city digital twin or a national digital twin. But it's really important to sort of start with the original use case. Important also to think about the stakeholders. Who's involved in this? Who's using the digital twin? Who's making the decisions? And also, excuse me, who is impacted by the digital twin and the decision that's made. And down in the bottom there, the importance of being able to connect digital twins. So not just using digital twins in the sort of the old-fashioned siloed way, but being able to connect across sectors to enable data to be shared securely across sectors. And that's what's really important about setting up an information management framework to enable a secure sharing of data across organizations and across sectors. And so the information management framework that's been put forward by the Centre for Digital Built Britain and the National Digital Twin Programme it's a technical framework at its core, but it's also non-technical as well. So at the technical levels, we're looking at developing a foundation data model, a reference data library, and an integration architecture. And that's really about setting a common language for sharing data across sectors and across organizations. And we don't just see this as UK-based at all. This, as I've said before, data goes across borders, digital twins need to connect across borders. So this, we're looking for international collaboration here. And when we are talking about connecting data models, common data models, we need a foundation data model at the basis of that we can all agree on in order to enable that interoperability and compatibility and the sort of that common language across data models and at the end being able to share data in a consistent, clear way. So what I would say here is we've put suggestions for an information management framework together. This is something that needs to be developed over time, and we're really keen to collaborate with others in the development of this information management framework. This is all about sharing data for the public good. We don't seek ownership of this. It's very much a framework to be able to share and connect digital twins in a secure way. Security actually has to be at the heart of this. And I think that that speaks a little bit to the Gemini principles. So the National Digital Twin Programme published the Gemini principles back in 2018, principles for guiding the use and development of digital twins. And they basically say that digital twins should have purpose. I've mentioned that already, and I'll come back to it, but they must be trustworthy and they must function effectively. So I would recommend having a look at that document and the other principles set out in there. You'll see security and quality in there particularly. So going back to this point about the purpose of digital twins. So in the work that we've been doing, working with our stakeholders, we've looked at what the general uses of digital twins are, and we've developed what we call the use case framework. And we find that digital twins are typically used for any of three reasons. So the first is strategy and planning. That's the city level type digital twin for planning future investments or looking at transport use scenarios. Then there are digital twins used for managing assets. And that's what digital twins are used for a lot at the moment. That's sort of one of the main uses. So looking at optimization and operations. And then there's digital twins for assurance. So for example, looking at the fire safety level of a housing building and being able to certify a certain level of fire safety and be able to calculate resilience levels. Within the National Digital Twin Programme, I've already mentioned we're developing the information management framework. And that really, as you can see there, it's all about collaborating on the rules to compete on the game. We all need to collaborate on the development of these standards, which, as I've said, are not just technical, but also the softer standards. So the norms, the practices, the cultural practices to sharing data and sort of the openness, the data sharing agreements, the data licenses, the formal side as well. But it's not just a technological solution here, it's very much looking at the cultural side of things. We see that this National Digital Twin Programme is a socio-technical change programme, that it's about using the technology to our best advantage in the right way, and that really needs engagement across all walks of the economy there to get involved. And to enable that, we have the Digital Twin Hub. So that's really community. So it's a community of asset owners and suppliers in the digital twin space. And I would really encourage you to register on the Digital Twin Hub. It's not just UK focused, it's open to international. And we really welcome collaboration through the DT Hub. It is all about learning by doing, progressing by sharing. So you can share your case studies on the DT Hub, anything that you're doing in the digital twin space or the standards development space. It's a good way of reaching a very wide audience. And before I finish, I would like to get on to our climate resilience demonstrator project, just to come back to the point of net zero very quickly at the end. And this is really a pilot project for the National Digital Twin. And the purpose, you're just going to have to excuse me for a moment with my fire alarm test. Apologies for that. Essential though. So the purpose of our climate resilience demonstrator is around showing how digital twins are an enabler, essential enabler of net zero. I don't think there is enough out there at the moment showing how we can use cross-sector data sharing to help us reach net zero and to improve our levels of resilience, of climate resilience. We also want to show how the information management framework can be applied in practice. And this is the point here, is that the information management framework approach is a scalable and replicable approach. Every time someone sets up a digital twin project at the moment, we are reinventing the wheel. So we all have to go through the same process of setting up the standards, the processes, the practices. And what we're looking to do with the IMF approach is something that's shareable, scalable, and replicable. And just one last slide. So the demonstrator project is a climate change adaptation digital twin. We're looking at the impact of flooding. And of course, there's a lot of examples of that recently. And we're showing how we can use a connected digital twin and data sharing across water, energy, and telecoms assets to improve the level of climate resilience with respect to flooding. So it's looking at system interdependencies, infrastructure interdependencies, and then being able to inform a response to flooding in the future. So it's about using the data in the digital twin to inform decisions in operations and capital planning to be able to improve the level of climate resilience. So as I've mentioned before, the successful outcome for this particular demonstrator project is that what we demonstrate here is scalable and replicable. We really want others to be able to use the same approach and to be able to improve the levels of climate resilience for their infrastructure systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for this information, for the case studies that provided to us, and the great information about the digital twin. So given the time and we are running late, so if anyone have any question from the audience, please feel free to use the tool. There's a tool in Zoom that you can ask questions directly to the speakers and to everyone, and they'll be able to provide answers to your questions. So to conclude, I'd like to thank our speakers. Thank you very much, Mr. Yulik El, and thank you very much, Ms. Sarah Hayes, for your presentation and for your keynote speeches. Thank you, and I'll turn back now to our moderator. So Miti, the floor is back to you now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Marzouki. Thank you for facilitating the session. So now we will move on to the session 1 for this webinar, which focuses on how digital twins can change our cities. So to initiate this session, I would like to call upon the moderator, Ms. Barbara Kohn, who is the director of the Austrian Economic Center and vice president of the Austrian National Bank. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Menon. It's a pleasure to be back with you and discussing these very important issues, and unfortunately still on a webinar series. But as we all deal with modern technology, I think we are all able to discuss this. As mentioned, I'm the director of the Austrian Center and the vice president of the Austrian Central Bank. First of all, let me thank NASA for running the last session and for the wonderful moderation, and our 2 great keynote speakers as well. What we will discuss with our next 3 speakers is the impact of digital twins in smart, sustainable cities. A special focus will be placed on the role of international standards in ensuring the interoperability in digital twins with technologies and accelerating its development in smart, sustainable cities. I'm very excited that we will be joined by representatives from the 3 leading standard development organizations. They are Mr. Michael Malkin. He is the chair of the Smart City Systems Committee at the IEC. Mr. Rami Ahmed Fathi, who is the vice chairman of the ITUT Study Group 20, and Mr. Bernard Gindros. He's the chair of ISO TC 268, the Sustainable Cities and Communities. So similar to our previous sessions, we will also do our best to have a question and answer section towards the end. And I can all encourage you to send us those questions and to post or chat with us in between, and use the FNA line below to make sure that we can have a fruitful discussion. So without further delay, please welcome Mr. Michael Malkin. Michael has spent 25 years partnering with cities, rural areas, and industries on how technology can help neighborhoods and cities work for better. For the last 8 years, he has been focusing on the development and implementation of smart and sustainable city standards, and has had the opportunity to learn from many experts in different standard development organizations. So we all decided that CVs are very short. You know that those people, speakers who join us have very impressive, very long CVs. You can look them up at the websites, but I would not waste any of Michael's time anymore. The floor is yours, and you will discuss digital twins in cities, how data can help us better understand the places, processes, and people in the city. Michael, it's 10 to 12 minutes. Thank you.
Can you see my screen? Perfect. So yes, digital twins in cities, are they interesting? Are they useful? Of course, but obviously it's still very much a potential benefit. So what we're looking at really is, this is something we need to be thinking about now, working at now, so that we can deliver it for cities in the future. I think I got the wrong screen. Well, I'll go through it like this. So we've already seen that there are many different, can you see my screen? Sorry, just checking.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yes, good. Michael. Yes, thank you. So there are many definitions for digital twins. I like this one because this is from the JDC1 subcommittee 41 that is looking at IoT and digital twins. And what I like about it is it first of all starts with the fact that a digital twin is a digital representation of a particular entity or process. And that's important because it's not just about physical things. Entities can be physical things. They can be cities, they can be railway stations, they could be electrical infrastructure, telecoms infrastructure, they can be all kinds of things, but it can also be people. An entity can be a person, it can be an organization. There's any possible thing that you can think of as an entity that has a physical existence, you can have a digital twin of it. But then what's important is that it's not simply a way of representing any particular entity or process accurately. It's about representing them in a way that brings data connections from that physical entity or process into the digital model that enable convergence between the physical and digital states at an appropriate rate of synchronization. So it's something that's live, that's real, that shows what's actually happening. And the key thing also about it is it says an appropriate rate of synchronization. It doesn't expect that every single thing is synchronized to the microsecond with between the digital and the physical. It's about the way that that what's appropriate in terms of making things up to date, because some things do need to be synchronized to the microsecond almost, but other things, it might be every 5 minutes, it might be every half hour, or even once a day. The most important thing is that the physical and the digital model are synchronized at the appropriate rate. And of course, city digital twins provide key insights on the places and physical assets in the city. And they also provide insights into the processes, the organizations, the way things happen, the things are done in the city. And they also provide insights into the people, the citizens, the visitors to the city, the tourists, the people in the city. And what that does is, by bringing together places, physical assets, processes, and people, it means that the city has a clear and accurate understanding of what everything is in the city, all of its resources, and what's happening to those resources and how well all of those resources are performing, so that the city as a whole can work much better together to achieve its objectives and to tackle all the challenges that it faces, like climate change and so on. So that's why city digital twins are really important. And of course, they're built up on many different things. This is a model we put together for our work on city information modeling, which is a particular kind of aspect of city digital twins. And it points to the fact that within the city, you have data coming from, within the digital twin of the city, you have data coming from building information modeling that provides accurate pictures of the built environment. You have geospatial data that's describing where things are in the city in an accurate way, the context of where things are, and also can describe movement and how things are moving through the city, and speed and where they're coming from, where they're going to. The Internet of Things, which is obviously sensors and so on, but also mobile phone data and a whole range of other things where we're able to bring together that real-time or appropriate time information from all of the things that we're trying to to look at in the digital twin. And then all of that data can be brought together to be analyzed and so on. And that could be either brought together at the edge, close to where the sensors and so on are, or in the cloud and the appropriate place. And then it can be analyzed, pulled together to provide the insights that city managers need in terms of manage and the individual needs in the city to ensure that the city works well. And of course, as we said, city digital twins help with planning. They show me what a future potential area of the city or a new organization's role or whatever it might be. It helps me to understand what it will look like, how it will perform, what the different options are, what's the pros and cons of each. What if we change something in that? What would the impact be? And what if something happened to that thing? What might the impact be? And how can we make sure we deal with that as we plan? And it can also happen. It can also help us, obviously, with the management, with what's happening to that object now. How will that change over time if we don't do anything to affect it? What options do I have? Where are staff, vehicles, equipment around the city? What needs to be fixed? What parts do I need? Where to put them? All sorts of really important information to help manage what's happening in the city. So let's just think quickly about these things one by one. When we think about places and physical assets, you can have a digital twin of the whole city, where you can, at a glance, if you like, look at how things are going on in every single area of the city, look at traffic flows, look at how the water systems are forming, everything else, to see where there are any problems, to see how things are working overall, and then allowing you to focus in on the precise challenges that you might be able to see and what needs to be done about them. And of course, it could be right down to things like traffic lights, where you're able to not just look at the city as a whole, but you can look at very specific parts of it in detail. And that's vital, because as you have digital twins of traffic lights, of all other aspects of the city, it means that if there's a problem, you can immediately understand not only that there's a problem in this particular area of the city, but that problem's to do with the fact this traffic light isn't performing properly. You can find out as you go into the digital twin and you get real-time information from the detailed parts, what's gone wrong, you know what parts needed to fix it, what needs to happen, and you can send the people to fix it, or you can do what's necessary immediately. So digital twins of the physical environment are really important. But let's not forget the processes, because when we're thinking about a smart city, the key thing isn't the technology. The key thing is...
Michael, excuse me if I interrupt you. You should move the slides as well, please.
I think, yeah, let me just...
I can see them all, but you have not moved for the other audience.
I'm going to quickly change this. I think I probably shared the wrong screen, and I apologize for that. Let me put that back up again. One moment. Let me see if I can get the right. Where are we at?
To put it into the slideshow mode.
I will. One moment. Is it working now?
No, not now. We only see the background so far. Maybe we can have some help from the office.
This is, let me just try again. One moment, let me just.
That's starting, let's see. Now you probably need to move
I can't share my, let me just.
Now you're back. Apologies to everybody while.
Yes, indeed.
Technical, but come back to your slides, and we will try that we can. Okay, now we can see the next one. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, anyway, It's strange because it seemed to be I couldn't stop sharing, I couldn't start. But the key thing about a smart city is about the processes. It's about how I, as a citizen, what are the processes for me to make a journey, plan a journey, to get my health situation dealt with, to find a job, all of the kind of processes I need to go in the city. As a manager, how to know how well my services are performing, what options I have, how easy it is to implement those options. And as a service planner, how I can get the evidence I need to make good decisions about how I can plan those services in the future. And that's really a key part of what a digital twin for cities needs to be. So one of the key things, the key tasks in the city digital twin is to be able to map the city organizations, how they're structured, how they work together, how they share tasks between each other, so that we can find out where things are not working optimally, and whatever changes that need to be made, we can make those changes in the organizations and the processes. It's really what has been traditionally called enterprise architecture here, but that's now being brought very much within the realm of the digital twin of a city, and it's really important that it's done. What we're trying to do here is to see, when you're looking at how the city is working, how the strategy, what requirements, the strategy, the key priorities of that city, what requirements they place on the business structures, how the different departments' roles are organized, and the processes that they manage the city systems together, the software that underpins all of those processes, and the technology underneath all of that. And so it's understanding how you can make sure there's a clear link between all of those different levels of city life, from strategy right down to the foundational technology, and then how each of them needs to bring capabilities back to the next level. And of course, that's how things are now. It's looking at how we can improve things. And then it's looking at, as we go into the future, how, as goals are changed, structures are optimized, again, how to put all of those things into place. And that's a key part, again, of the digital twin. And then finally, about the people. When we're thinking about the citizen, it's not just the citizen, assuming that all citizens are the same, because there are many different kinds of citizens, and each kind of citizen has their own particular aims and objectives, challenges they face in living in the city. And what we need to do is, in the city, is to understand who are all the different kinds of people that are using the city, that are living in the city, that are benefiting from the city services, and understand and make sure that we design our city and the way our city works in a way that will meet the needs of each one of these. And as we've said, for instance, Amazon, they've developed digital twins of nearly 200 customer types. And I think as cities, we need to be even more concerned than Amazon to find out all the different sorts of people that we need to serve in the city. And so if you imagine a flood, just as an example, that the places digital twin would be brilliant, because it would help us know things like which areas of the city would be flooded first, how long it would take before each part of that city was flooded, which roads and other routes would become unusable and when, which parts of the city might provide safe havens, how could people get to them, which buildings might provide shelter if it's a really big environmental challenge, where there might be power cuts and so on, and where might be good places to store sandbags and other equipment. So hugely important there. The organizations and processes. So which organizations are best placed to provide help in that situations? Who manages the key buildings that might provide shelter? What information do different agencies need? How best to provide it? Which agencies have staff, supplies in that locate? How can they be supported to help manage the emergency? And then in terms of the people digital twins, identifying which kinds of citizens are most vulnerable to this disaster, where are they located, so that if there's disabled people with disabilities, people with who are older, who've got other challenges, how can we make sure we find out where they are and help them? When we're trying to send out messages about that disaster, what are the best channels to use for the different kinds of people? And then at any time, which people are like to be at work and which are like to be at home? And so how can we deal with that and make sure that we can ensure the city functions with minimum disruption? So the key thing is, when you're thinking about a digital twin, it isn't just the physical environment, that's obviously the foundation, but it's also understanding how we can provide a replica, if you like, of the organizations, the structures, the processes in the city, and the different kinds of people that are using the city, and see how we can use these three different types of digital twin together to help us manage the city better and plan it better in the future. Just briefly, in terms of the IEC, we've been focusing on city information modeling, which is very much focused, if you like, more at the physical environment digital twin, but we are seeing how this is not sufficient. We had a 2-day virtual seminar on city information and urban digital twins, and we're about to publish an in-depth report. There was some extremely good discussions, presentations from experts about what these things are, and we hopefully will be able to, you'll be able to enjoy that very soon. And then we're also looking at collaboration. We're talking with a JDC1 study group 41. We're also talking to ISO TC 211 on geographic information, the Open Geospatial Consortium, and obviously ITU is next on our list. So it's really a matter of how we can work together to deliver, to identify what standards are needed and to deliver the standards that will help cities use digital twins to manage their lives better. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'm totally with you when you say we should cooperate and work together. And on the other hand, the division of labor is something that is far more important, because if we don't do that, we are lost, and reinventing the wheel just doesn't make sense. There are so many good ideas and so many good things out there already. We just need to combine them. Yeah. And I think our cooperation that we have seen so far at ITU and with the Smart Sustainable City working groups and with everything that is being done under the wing of Ms. Boetti and her team has shown that we can do it and we can get somewhere. So without further ado, I simply would like to give the floor to Rami Ahmed Fathi. He's the vice chairman of the ITU T Study Group 20 of ITU. And I'm really glad that he can join us. And Rami is the Director of Digital Services Planning and Risk Assessment at the Egyptian National Telecom Regulatory Authority, NTRA in short, and currently serving as the Vice Chairman, as I already mentioned, of our ITU T Study Group 20, and on IoT and its applications, including smart cities and communities since late 2015, where he is leading activities relating to the standardization of end-to-end architectures of IoT and smart cities, intelligence mechanisms for the interoperability of IoT applications, security, and identification aspects of IoT systems. Fathi has a PhD in electronics and communications. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Barbara. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can, and we can also see your slide.
All right, perfect. Thank you for having me and for the opportunity to share our views. I think it's an excellent forum where we share different views from different leading international SDOs on this very important topic. So what do we have here? Digital twins, of course, we've listened to very interesting views and very interesting aspects. And the focus of my presentation today is try to highlight the impact that digital twins could actually have for cities, and to try to highlight the enabling role of standards to accelerate the deployment of digital twins. So we will typically start, of course, with the definition. what is a digital twin anyway? And I'll try to be very straightforward, very simplistic. Very simply, a smart city digital twin is actually a digital replica of something in the physical world. So that could be a car, it could be a mobile phone, it could be even a city as large as a city. It could be something static, it could be dynamic, it could be something which is actually complex, where it evolves with time. And this highlights the very interesting dimensions of the concept of a digital twin and how we can actually approach the problem that we want to solve. So we know, of course, as a matter of fact, that one of the key enablers of a digital twin is Internet of Things. Computers and machines are able to recreate physical objects in the digital world. And of course, that can be done using data gathered from intelligent sensors and devices. In turn, city scientists can gather insights about how to improve the operations of the city by experimenting on the digital replica, by performing some experiments, some scenario analysis. Combined with AI and big data analytics, a digital twin can actually recreate a 3D model of a city. And accordingly, it can carry out virtual simulations on urban infrastructure, on utilities, on vehicle movements during emergency situations. So it's considered a tool of real importance and real impact on our societies. The digital twin has the significant potential to improve the operational efficiencies and the resiliency and the sustainability of our services. It could reduce the maintenance issues that we are currently facing in our daily lives. I mean, the city managers and the municipalities, they are facing extreme challenges when it comes to how to plan or how to detect any potential retrofit needed in a timely manner. As I said, the digital twin can be thought of or be considered as a very powerful tool for supporting cities' journey towards digitalization. Through data collection and simulation, a digital twin can be used to optimize energy consumption, to enhance disaster preparation and improve mobility and transportation, to visualize operation processes and outcomes, and a lot more. The digital twins can actually provide also a safe testing environment that would enable city stakeholders to enhance operational efficiency across sectors. It could improve urban design, and we could be ending up in a better position to prepare for any potential disaster situations. And of course, it is one of the fundamental tools that we consider to realize the SDGs. Of course, the one which is related to smart cities, SDG, Sustainable Development Goal 11. The digital twin can also play a vital role in city modeling and scenario planning. And aside from that, I come from the telecom industry. So the operators working in the communication service providers, the telecom operators, they have very good experience in how to optimize the network. Optimization is not something that is easy. Usually, the telecom operators, or we as experts working in this particular domain, we consider the telecom network as a live network, full of many dynamic scenarios. Something can actually come up which could impact the quality of the provisioned services that you provide to your customer. In that sense, the operators usually engage in very sophisticated optimization tasks. Imagine the key performance indicators. A typical network could have more than 100 key performance metric, which highlights all elements in your network. We're talking about some aspects related to accessibility, some aspects related to the quality of the services and the quality of experience that you get. So imagine the situation when you are actually managing the city. So with all these complexities, when you're focusing only on a single layer in the city, that's the connectivity, the infrastructure. Imagine the complexities associated with managing hundreds of urban type of services, like water management, like transportation systems, like lighting systems. That would be a very complex exercise. And accordingly, digital twins not only is very important for scenario modeling and scenario planning, it is also very, very important and a very good tool for potentially optimizing how to run your city. Cities have the chance with digital twin to go beyond the simulations that can only focus in that particular setups on isolated questions due to the limited capabilities. But however, with digital twin, you are able to quickly test ideas and make necessary adjustments before finalizing planning and policy decisions. And this would allow cities to keep up with accelerated pace of change that characterizes, of course, our world. Smart cities use a big data approach to monitor city systems, track their operations, and make educated predictions regarding the effect of any potential future change. So this technology can also be used when planning new mega smart city projects. And we always, I've been involved in the planning of smart cities in Egypt. Many stakeholders are coming together, different views and different topics, and usually you come up with very difficult questions that you need to have an answer for. And without the proper tools at your hand, you would be in extremely difficult situations whereby you cannot really model or test any potential scenarios that might face a particular city or a particular city owner. Without the tools, without the proper tools, you would end up with potentially misinformed decisions. And accordingly, we think that digital twin, and this is not something that is not backed up by real implementations. Real implementations have proven that digital twins does indeed provide very good support for city leaders, specifically for planning activities and activities like public engagements, like transportation flow planning, like disaster mitigation scenarios, etc. We have seen the growing trend of using the digital twin to improve urban solutions, and this has been evident across the world. So today I want to highlight 3 examples from Finland, Singapore, and India. Helsinki, for example, has tested the city's first digital twin in an effort to mitigate the risks of climate change and to improve the energy efficiency. The city has recreated in high quality 3D a digital twin model that enabled users to visit the city and all of its tourist attraction at any time of the year. It was a very nice idea, and as I said, it has very good value, of course, from a planning and from a modeling point of view. Singapore is widely regarded as a leading adopter for the digital twin technology. The city has invested around 70 or 73 million US dollars, Singaporean dollars, if I'm not mistaken, partly in developing Virtual Singapore, which is a dynamic 3D city model and collaborative data platform that supports the city stakeholders in driving innovation. And recently, the government of Andhra Pradesh in India decided to invest 6.5 billion US dollars to develop a new state capital, Amaravati, from the ground up, along with a digital twin of the city. So this ambitious project aims to utilize a digital twin to monitor the construction process in real time, something which is also considered one of the most important applications and use cases for smart city. And this is to carry out climate change related simulations, zoning, environmental and traffic analysis, and to create a digital twin user ID scheme that would serve as a single portal for government information, applications, and notifications. So we see the different cities have used the concept in different ways, in different interesting ways, which highlight the importance of the technology and the importance of the potential use cases that can come up with the development of these aspects, of course, of these technological aspects, of course. So about the ITU, what have we done to support the efforts, the international efforts related to the digital twin? Before I dive into that, let me give you a very quick introduction on the ITU. Of course, as an organization, it was founded in 1865, 193 member states, more than 700 companies and organizations, more than 160 academic members. So it's an organization with a rich history of developing standards, of connecting the world, and of leading many initiatives, many initiatives related to development and bridging the digital divide. Of course, one of the leading and important activities that the ITU is currently responsible of course, through the work which is done by the radio sector or the radio bureau, is allocating radio frequencies and managing satellite frequencies, managing satellite orbits and access technology. And this is also one of the fundamental pillars of the ITU, of course, the ITUR. And developing technical standards, and we call them recommendations, of course, is one of the main pillars as well of the ITU, through the work which is done by the Standardization Bureau, the ITUT, and finally, as I said, the development work, how to support the development efforts to improve global access to ICT, and that this is the main focus of the development bureau, the development sector, the ITU, the ITUD. So how do we support digital twins? The ITU has a vital role in establishing the trajectory and the standardization activities on standardization roadmap of the digital technologies in cities. The ITUT and its membership are at the forefront of standards development and coordination with activities across all digital technological domains. We do this through different instruments. We have study groups in the standardization sector, of course, with study group 20 leading the standardization activities of the Internet of Things and smart cities and communities. So this is one fundamental arm that, of course, is leading the efforts related to the digital twin standardization. We have also different instruments which spans the policy and the technology domains through the initiatives and the instrument of the United for Smart and Sustainable Cities, and of course our joint collaboration activities, whether that is with the ISO and the IEC, and also with other relevant SDOs in the industry. And of course, we have the tools and the instruments of the JCA, the Joint Coordination Activities on IoT and smart cities and communities. All these instruments are being effectively used by the ITU to support the digital twins roadmaps and the industry development in this important area in Pacific. So focusing on Study Group 20, what do we do at Study Group 20? So Study Group 20 is the lead study group which focuses on the area of IoT standardization. As I mentioned, it is responsible for the Internet of Things and its applications, including smart cities and communities, and also on the big data aspects of IoT and smart cities and communities, and on the e-services and smart services for SCNC. Given the growth trajectory of the world's population, and that everyone knows close to 70% of the world's population will live in cities by 2050, sustainable urbanization has become a key focus of our activities, of the ITUT activities, especially in light of the disruption witnessed by the COVID-19 pandemic. As previously mentioned, digital technologies offer an opportunity to transform cities and help instill long-term sustainability. But their success depends strongly on the existence and smooth and effective implementation of global standards. And this is what we do in Study Group 20. In terms of main activities and main structures, so Study Group 20 is composed of 2 working parties with 7 questions. We are taking the lead on Internet of Things and its applications, on smart cities and communities, and on IoT identification. Several questions which are related to digital twins. Of course, part of them is also touching upon digital twins. Of course, we are working on Internet of Things and its applications and smart cities at large, and there are many work that we have done and currently in the pipeline. As you can see, we have highlighted the relevant questions which in a way also affects the work which is done in digital twins. And of course, I'm going to highlight in particular or to describe in particular which elements exactly we have done which are related to the digital twins. So in question 1, the first item that we have focused upon is the interoperability framework of digital twin systems in smart cities. And this is considered as one of the most important and fundamental work that we have focused upon as well, among many things, because we think that without interoperability between the different vendor implementations in the industry, we would have a tremendous problem. We think that the digital twins implementation and the industry pickup will not be as fast without proper interoperability frameworks. So in this particular work,
Rami, apologies if I interrupt, but you overdid it a little bit already. So can you wrap up? And
Definitely. So in this particular work, we provide guidance to cities and community stakeholders to implement and operate digital twin technology based on data interoperability, digital data processing, and the required digital infrastructure to enable connectivity among all connected objects. In Q2, we also have several work items related to the capabilities of digital twins for smart cities. for the requirements and capability framework for digital twin for intelligent transportation systems and for smart firefighting. A very important piece of work also as well in Q5, which is on the interaction between the physical and the digital cities for building smart and sustainable cities. And this work aims to research on how to build a new smart city with collecting and expanding information on of an existing city. The interaction of building a city, of building the smart, sustainable city between physical and digital city is the prioritized topic of this technical paper. And it is intended to research the digital building model and to annotate locations of IoT sensors in buildings, as well as the interactions between the different sensors and GIS locations. So the details, of course, can be fetched from our website, or if you can reach out to us directly. Q7 also focuses on the concept and the use cases, and also this is considered, of course, one fundamental point to try to come up with all potential use cases that would be beneficial from a practical point of view to a city owner or a city implementer. Collaborations is key for the ITU, and this kind of cross-sectoral partnership is essential for achieving smart, sustainable cities and communities. These collaborations unleash innovative ways of working, mobilizing expertise, developing key resources for cities and communities. And 1M2M is one example for that. We have done some work with the TM Forum, collaborations, of course, with the ISO and IEC, and the joint IEC, ISO and ITU Smart Cities Task Forces. One also is a recent example of the importance of collaboration, especially between the leading international SDOs. Finally, before I conclude, the last slide before I conclude, I've mentioned that we have an instrument, a very important instrument, which interacts with the policymakers. That's the U4SSC, a very important instrument to interact with policymakers. And so we bring technology experts and policymakers in one room and solve key chronic issues. So to summarize, digital twins for smart cities are indeed beneficials. They can serve to address urban solutions from a digital twins perspective. Collaboration is key, so this is a final key message. We have a continued role in digital transformation, and we will definitely continue to play that role, and I would be happy to receive any question. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Rami, and sorry for pushing you, but we just need to come back to our track since we have a very special guest also joining us. Usually you start with the ladies, but I want to have her speak last. And it's now my big pleasure to invite Bernard Ginders. Dr. Bernard Ginders has been an independent consultant on energy, environment, climate change, smart cities, and communications and transport since 2014, with a special focus on innovation policies and standardization. Bernard is very active in standardization as the chairman of several bodies, including ICO TC 268, which is in charge of sustainable development of communities, and the CEN, CNEC, LECE, and the ETSI, which is the sector forum on smart and sustainable cities and communities. And as mentioned before, of course, we could talk endlessly about our speakers, our very prominent speakers, but we only have 25 minutes left, and I would like to give the floor after Bernard is done to Ms. Cristina Martinez, and then we will have a short round of questions. So Bernard, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I will try to be brief and just give you an overview of what we are doing at ISO TC268 level. Can you see my screen in full mode? Yes, okay. I will be brief, be sure. Okay, so thank you very much and good day, everyone. I will just give you a perspective from the ISO TC268 about considering a digital twin in support of the change, the transformation of our city. First of all, cities are facing a very complex and cross-sectorial challenges that definitely need to have a long-term vision and commitment, but also strong stakeholders engagement, and especially citizens engagement. And this needs also to ensure a holistic approach with priorities, integrated planning. And that's exactly where standards could definitely be of support of this transformation. So when we speak about this transformation and the long-term vision, there is a need to define this vision, to have a commitment, decisions, and this need strong political engagement, and as I said before, citizen engagement. Based on that, there is a need to define some strategies and objectives and roadmaps. And that's exactly where decision-making is not an easy task. It's very complex, and there is a need for all the different possible tools in support of the decision makings and comforting people, the decision makers, in the fact that they selected the right set of options. And in this concept, digitalization could help both by implementing the different programs, but also from the data we can collect from this phase, we can feed benchmark and bench learning approaches as well. And that's exactly what we are trying to do, especially within our ISO TC268 technical committee. And in this context, standards can drive the change by accelerating the digital transformation of cities, especially because standards could also support the establishment and the feeding benchmarking approach, but also making bench learning effective, because it brings also trust and confidence among all the different users, which is key towards making some decision based on best practice. So how to support the decision-making phase, as I said, is so critical and crucial for a city, for a community. It needs really trust in existing best practice, in existing case studies. It needs to get capacities to evaluate, estimate, or modelize the impact of any options. And this is extremely important for setting the strategies, for setting the major and the major roadmaps and action plans, and to define targets and objectives in a relevant and coherent manner. And this is exactly where digital twin could definitely be of very strong help and bring a lot of benefit and boost this decision-making process. Digital twin, as you know, is this digital representation of a physical process, a system, a device, etc., that has been developed first to improve the manufacturing process. In the urban context, the digital twin is again a virtual replication of all the different main elements of system infrastructure that compose a city or community. And this allows, in fact, to have a quick feedback about impact of new options, to simulate and predict from different scenarios how this will impact the operational mode of city, all the quality of life of cities, to anticipate, let's say, land planning and a lot of different things, urban planning and management. This is extremely interesting because it also brings some visual possibilities that help people who are not used and not specialists, expert in that phase, to see at one glance how the different options could contribute to transforming their city. Again, the different domains covered by the digital twin are numerous. I just listed a few here. That is at the core of all what the cities are tackling today: the built environment, infrastructures, transport, mobility, land use, environment quality and pollution, climate change and adaptation as well, energy efficiency, water management, etc., etc. And based on all these different domains where digital twin could bring and visualizes the impact of different solutions, we can see here a few use cases and applications that are at the core of the priority, the top priorities from cities today. It's to first be able to optimize the way traffic control could make all the traffic as free as possible, to engage in some physical security and safety issues, energy, water, waste management, monitoring critical infrastructures, trying to anticipate how all these different infrastructures will last in time. And that's something extremely important because it is at the core of what a city has in terms of responsibility and bringing also quality of life. How can digital twin, in fact, facilitate this integrated planning and accelerate the transition, urban transition? I just wrote down here through big or macro bullet points. The first one is by connecting and bringing relation between the real world and simulation, and helping in, let's say, representing through geospatial models in 3D mainly, representing what this will impulse and generate in terms of actions to be undertaken. The second point is about providing this intuitive visualization that is extremely important for any categories of stakeholders. First of all, to align their perception, their understanding about the problems, and also to progressively educate these people in the benefit of considering integrated planning approach instead of sectoral or silos, as Ulrich mentions in one of the previous presentations. And of course, in that sense, the digital twins could be of a real help for in support of this integrated planning, could also motivate a kind of co-creation, co-design with all different categories of stakeholders. So the benefits from the digital twin, the first one, but not the first one, one of these very important one is time, because it helps in anticipating how the different infrastructures will develop over time. How this will impact also other sectors, and how there could be some optimization about maintenance through cross-sectorial approach. When we start to maintain a road, for instance, we could take the same opportunity for maintaining, I don't know, some fiber lines or things like that, also water management activities, etc. And it also provides this intuitive visualization, as I said, about the interaction between the different sectors and disciplines. And this is extremely important. It can also offer the possibility to introduce different technologies as options and to check their impact, not only directly related to the technology itself, but on, let's say, collateral impacts, like impacts on the air pollution, CO2 emissions, and other issues as well. But also align stakeholders in making them aware of the impact of the development, making them aware of the necessity to consider also other sectors of priority than the one they are concentrating on. And finally, also offers some financial aspect and co-benefit by giving the opportunity when investors will have to decide to invest or not, to see what could be the results and the impacts of some infrastructure development, for instance, but also understanding how and why it is key to have these integrated approaches, and also identify the kind of collateral benefits or positive impacts. Having said that, what kind of role can standardization bodies play in that sense? First of all, the standardization tools we are developing, of course, need to support the compliance with the regulations, framework, policies, etc., but also will contribute to the behavior change and motivate this co-creation, which is extremely key, citizens and stakeholders engagement in the transformation of the city. And especially standards could ensure we can have a long list of different actions and activities or domains, but could especially ensure the elaboration of a set of data by ensuring that they are open, by ensuring also a protection approaches of this data, personal protection, which is extremely important, interoperability and alignment, a collection of case studies, when we can also collect these best practice, it helps in the decision-making process and boost in most of the case the replication and scaling up from pilot demos or already implemented activities in other cities. It also brings some guidelines towards setting these long-term visions I said before, strategies and roadmaps, action plans, communication, reporting, but also this collection of best practice that will feed benchmarking and benchlearning. So urban digital approach is extremely important, will support each of these different steps because people will understand and have this type of vision about impacts of different options and support the decision-making process. However, there is, as I already said before, a key need for open data and considering also data protection activities. In ISO TC 268, we definitely aim to support cities in the decision-making process towards development and implementation of holistic integrated approach to sustainable development and sustainability, as you can see here. We are proposing and we have developed a management system approach that guides cities in each of these different phases from vision to implementations and improvement, where decision-making is key. So that we are supporting any and consider any innovative tools, any type of tools that will support and boost this transformation in cities. And of course, digital twin is one of these key enabler or booster. And of course, we already said before, collaboration is key. And I would like to enforce what has been said before by Rami. In fact, we have this strong engagement and permanent collaboration with IEC and ITU through our new joint smart cities task force that also need to develop in current manner this support to cities transformation. And as conclusion, digital twin are booster towards urban transformation, as I said, by offering a multiple benefit, as you can see here. And standardization are key driver for also digital twins implementation by ensuring these open data framework, interoperability, but also trust in case studies for replication and scaling up, as well as guiding the cities towards this journey towards transformation and smart and sustainable development. Finally, as I said before, this is thanks to the fact that standards bring trust and confidence and thus bring these citizens acceptance and engagement, but also confidence in decision-making, thanks to the trust in benchmarking and best practice and robust technical guidance document and management system. Same for the, as it contributes to de-risking the decisions because it is, all the standards are based on consensus process during this development and people trust in that. And finally, as said before, cooperation is key. And I would like to finalize my presentation on that last slide by saying this is one key opportunity for cities to have this strengthened cooperation between IEC, ITU and ISO with this joint smart cities task forces. Thank you. I hope I was not too long. I have tried to accelerate a bit. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you very much, Bernard. You almost made it up. It worked well. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my privilege and pleasure to invite Cristina Martinez, who is the Deputy Head of Smart Technologies for Communities from the European Commission. Christina's background is a graduate in science philosophy, in communication, and she also has an MC in telematics with cum laude, which one also has to mention, from the universities of Brussels. And she spent a lot of time in the United Nations already, in the headquarters, working on IT track and trace development project for Africa, Asia, and Latin America. But without further ado, I simply would invite Cristina to the floor and ask her for her remarks.
Well, thank you very much. Where did you find this short CV? I'm impressed, actually. It wasn't from me. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I only have 2 slides, so I cannot be too long. I don't know if I can share the screen. It would be nice if you could allow me. What I would like to do is on the first slide to focus on the commonalities, because we heard many things that actually resonate very much with the European Union approach. And in the second slide, I would like to perhaps underline a bit of our specificities and show what is our strategy in order to achieve a sensible deployment of local digital twins in Europe for a purpose. So let's start with the purpose. I don't see a possibility to share slides. I don't know if maybe somebody.
Maybe we can help you from the background.
Would be nice, yes, please.
See if I get some info.
Meanwhile, I can introduce myself and the organization. So as I said, I work in the area of digital policy in the Commission. The European Commission is the executive branch of the European Union, as most of you know. So what we do is we support the policies that help all the member states to work in common and address some of the biggest challenges. The local digital twin, I think, is a very interesting support and solution. Sorry, I'm
so you should try to, Christina, you should try and it should work now.
But I don't see where I can take over, actually.
Hang on a second, I'll let you know.
It should be in the middle, and I don't see the possibility to take
just hang on.
Christina, do you have the share screen just on the bottom of your screen when you have discussion, Q&R, etc.?
Yep, and there you can share it.
Christina is. Yes, I do now. Yes, I do indeed. Can you see something?
Yes.
Here? Yes. Fine.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here you go. Is that okay? Can you see it full screen now?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So the first point that I think all the speakers today have underlined is a very important one, is that we see the deployment of this solution for a purpose. And the purpose is indeed for Europe, it's very important to address the environmental and climate change challenges, which, as you know, are one of the biggest threats we have. So we don't have much time to decarbonize our societies, and local digital twins are very handy tools which could help in this effort, especially in cities where we have, as we heard earlier on, 65% of the electricity consumption in Europe, 70% of our population living in cities. So this is indeed really a very important area of deployment. But we think that we need a very robust framework before deploying local digital twins for many reasons. First of all, because we need to be ready technically, we need to be indeed capable of feeding all those technology solutions with quality data. We need to be ready for manipulating it, but there are also other things that we perhaps have not touched upon so much in the previous discussions, which is the impact of deploying technology. Technology like this one, especially when it comes to sensing what is happening in the environment, or filming, people, citizens, cars. I mean, it has a lot of consequences which have in the European policy framework, have a need for a careful attention in how we deploy this technology. So that's what I would call the societal impact of technology. And we don't want to shaken our fundamental values. This is very important. So this is why we have a policy framework called the data strategy, but also the digital decade, which is addressing some of these issues that are relating to platforms capturing data, citizens disclosing their data online, and making sure that privacy, democracy, freedom, but also the fight against fake news is preserved. That's one thing. Another aspect is that perhaps net zero is not a given. So we tend to think that when we deploy a solution, a technological solution, we are going to definitely improve the situation in a system. And sometimes systems are very complex environments where when you increase the usage of when you improve the usage of the system, what you get in the end is an increase of that system. In other words, by optimizing resources in some areas like mobility, for instance, improving traffic in a city, for example. Studies have shown that we can very much end up in a situation where you would have more cars in the end in the city, which is not necessarily the desired journey. And so we want to make sure that we are well aware of the systemic impacts of all these solutions. And that's why one key word for me is that the design principles are key. And design and standards are very much related. So what we need to think in standards as instruments to serve our policy purpose as well, and make sure that we entrin into the conditions and the principles of those standards, those important elements, so that we do not build a technology that is agnostic to the reality and to its impact, but rather the opposite, technology that serves societal purpose. So that's our claim, and we have a declaration called Living in EU, which gathers a number of values and principles that smart cities who are ready to digitalize themselves would adopt in order to protect our citizens and protect the European way of living. Another point which I think is important is also on the understanding of what a digital twin is and how far the capacity to analyze the data should be. And this is also, again, a very important discussion for the standardization bodies, because artificial intelligence can really create new issues and new challenges that we will have to manage. And as we're talking about the real life, we're not talking about a closed environment, for example, in an industry business case, but we're talking really about the interaction with citizens and people we need to protect. It's very important to understand that sometimes correlation and causality are really not the same thing. And we've seen different demonstrations that perhaps we need to be quite mindful and perhaps very prudent in how we define an ideal digital twin. And I'll come to that later on. Finally, we have indeed in Europe a lot of existing digital twins, which are very successful, already promising, showing lots of benefits. And I agree with one of the previous speakers that it is time to start connecting them, because we need to learn from each other. There are best practices that can be shared. This is common sense, but also because we are creating new data with these digital twins, data that will teach us how to address some of those challenges, like how do you decarbonize your building sector in a city efficiently. So that's for the commonalities. And now I will finish with the European approach. The European Commission is looking at an array of instruments in order to deliver on sustainable and smart digital twins in Europe. We are supporting, of course, the development of the technology. We have a research program, and we have now a deployment program called Digital, which will be supporting a lot of different instantiations of digital twins, which will be supporting the deployment of data spaces.
Yeah, your slides don't work. You should move to the next ones, please.
That is the next one. Don't you see it? It's called the European Commission approach.
No, we still have the remarks.
Okay, so maybe I should control it from here then.
Yes, please do. And may I remind you, we are very short on time.
Yeah, this is the last one.
Okay,
I don't need the slide. I don't need the slide. I would like to say that we're working on data also. Open data is very important. So we have a policy framework to encourage and incentivize the data sharing between public and private organizations. We need to work on the skills. That's very important as well. As I said, we need to be able to manipulate this, and we need to be able to define problem statements that make sense, accompanied with the right methodologies to not only define those questions that we want to represent or analyze through the digital twins, but also to monitor and to be able to question the answers and the models, the scenarios that are proposed by digital twins. So we need frameworks. We also need to look at the legal and cultural aspects. KPIs are fundamental, and here more standards are probably needed in order to measure the real impact of all the decisions. These standards should be, in my view, in our view, supported by public, scientific, and citizen oversight. that's fundamental if you want a solution that is citizen-led and that is really meeting the expectations of your citizens. We think that it's important also to start with use cases. So this is why we're investing in a lot of pilot projects. And finally, as I mentioned, a lot of programs, I would like just to focus on one important call that will be launched next year in 2022, where we will be supporting a project that can create that will create a toolbox for local digital twins in Europe. And that is the capacity to have in one place the methods, the solutions, the middleware technologies, and everything that is needed to, at a very cost-efficient price, set up a local digital twin in cities, be it a large or a mid-size or a small city in Europe. And with this, I will close my intervention. I just wanted to say that I'm ready to engage with you all. We are already working with a lot of the colleagues in the room today, and we hope that we will have some exchanges of view on how our interoperability framework for smart cities can be combined, compatible, or create synergies with the existing ones that have been presented today. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Well, thank you very much, Christina. This was very informative, and trust me, many of us have been working on these fields, and we have created those KPIs. We've come up bottom up and top down from all kinds of academia and practical issues, and I'm sure there is plenty already on the ground that we can combine. And I just have to ask Maria Cristina Buetti now whether we should still allow 5 minutes for questions, because we're over time already, or whether I should hand over for the final remarks. Christina, what is your take? Please give me the answer. And if I do not hear from Christina.
Barbara?
Yes.
Yes. Hi. Sorry, just maybe because it's really late. One last comment from each speaker, and then straightforward to the closing remarks. But I would ask really 1 minute per speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. So I would simply put the three key questions to Michael, Rami, and Bernard, and we really stop you. 60 seconds only. Michael, may I start with you? Which is more important, digital twins of places, processes, or people? Michael?
Yeah, sorry, I just needed to unmute myself. Sorry, yeah. So they clearly all need to work together. You need the places because that gives you the structure and the framework, because we live in a place and we work in that place and so on. But we also need to understand how that place is being managed and how that can be managed for all the different kinds of people. And so what's important is to make sure we do each one of those and look at their interactions together.
Thank you very much. Rami, 60 seconds. Why is it important to use digital twin solutions to create a smart city? How will standards play a role in the uptake of digital twin technology?
So a digital twin, as I said earlier during my presentation, is considered as a very powerful tool for supporting cities in their digital transformation journey. Cities can use digital twins to model citywide operation and to plan ahead some specific important scenarios for the cities, as well as to even optimize their operation. As for the role of the standards, we think, of course, most importantly, standards can play a very important role in interoperability and to bridge between any potential proprietary protocols that could definitely reduce the complexity and the cost of integrating different vendors' solutions for different citywide implementations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last question for Bernard, how to use digital twins for co-creation in an integrated planning process?
Yes, thank you. I will try also to answer very quickly. In fact, if we want this co-creation, we need to interest people to participate. And among the different stakeholder or categories of stakeholders, citizens is a very, very important one. They are the ones who are living in their cities. They are the ones who would like to see how their cities should look like in a couple of years, in 10 years, 20 years from now. So definitely by this digital twin, we can offer this visualization of the impacts, and that will also help in aligning them and motivating them to further contribute and to become some, let's say, proactive in this field and then participate to co-creation, co-design. We have seen this in many cities in Europe, especially as Christina reminded before. It works extremely well. Citizens are considering this almost as a game, but they bring a lot of ideas, and these ideas has to be either integrated in the digital twin approach to show the impact, positive or negative, and based on that, they are trusting in the result and move progressively and in easier manner towards a consensus in the decision-making process.
Thank you very much. And Christina, no question for you right now, because we will all work together. And without further ado, I would like to thank all our 4 speakers of this panel. Hand over to Bilal for the summing up, and then further to Christina. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you soon again, live, hopefully.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for your excellent moderation and trying to keep it on time. You're almost there, but I'll keep also my closing remarks short. I also thank all of our speakers. I think the topic is so interesting that we probably needed a bit more time. But I'm very glad that our sister international standards organizations, IEC and ISO, and ITU were together today on this very important topic, cooperating and collaborating to bring digital twin cities to the world. It is a formidable task, and it will require the strong cooperation among the 3 of us. Digital twins is a powerful tool that would enable cities to transcend the cyber-physical ecosystem, optimize design and planning. I think the city planners need this new feature, this new technology. They can use the digital models to test new systems, to emulate the delivery of urban services prior to their implementation, simulate responses to crisis, optimize resources, really use the latest technologies to better the life of citizens around the world. It's also some of the points made by the colleague from the European Commission are really important in terms of the data. We cannot talk about twin cities without data. Quality data, interoperable data is a prerequisite to having digital twin cities. We're very pleased that the United for Smart Sustainable Cities, with many UN agencies, about 16 other UN agencies, have been implemented in hundreds of cities around the world. This morning we were with Norway, and we saw the implementation nationwide. And this implementation allows for that data to be available. And we started to see dashboards implemented in software that make use of that data to really implement a digital twin and have that accessible every morning to the city planner and designer. So we're very happy that this standard is available. It's providing for a common language among cities in one country and around the world. Very pleased with our colleagues that shared their work in ITUT Study Group 20, the chairman and vice chairman of Study Group 20, that are very attentive to the feedback received today on how to evolve our standards in Study Group 20 to really address the needs and our collaboration with IEC and ISO in the joint task force. So I would conclude by thanking all of you for your excellent participation, for all your input, our colleagues from the European Commission and FIWARE as an important element in this equation. And for any follow-up, please reach out to our website, to our email, and I wish you a wonderful afternoon, wonderful rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jamousi. Thank you, speakers and Barbara, for moderating session 1. Just before we close officially for the day, we would like to remind you that we're not done with the topic of digital transformation in cities yet. So we have our next webinar, which is episode 2 on IoT-based automotive emergency response systems on the 14th of September from 12 to 2 Geneva time. So you can register. We'll put the link along with the program. So we look forward to welcoming you to that next week as well. So thank you all for your attention and your participation.